right, cool. Let's start off with just getting a little bit of background about you, Mark. I'd like to know more, just a brief history of who you've worked with, where are you located in the world, what do you do?
I am currently in New York City. I'm in the East Village. I've had this little studio here for, God, going on 25 years. The history of this place is interesting. I was doing a record with one of my clients, Mr. Bowie, and I had all my gear. I was living here for a minute, and I had all my equipment here, and he's like, "Why don't we go to your place and sing and do some things?" And I thought, "You're insane. Why would we go to my apartment?" Uh, but he loved it, and I thought, well, if my man likes it, then there's some history. There's something here. I can't even count how many things I've done here and how much music has come out of this little unassuming space. About oh God, almost 15 years ago, I got this console here, which changed everything. And that's about it for this place and why I'm still in the city. Before that, I was a traveling engineer and mixer starting in the late 80s. I was working in New York in a lot of studios. I was working on lots of different projects. And then there'll be a project that'll kind of bump you up a level. That project was with Prince, which was one of those other happy accidents. Like so much of this is like accidents and luck and timing and just, being around and people knowing who you are and what you do. And for me, it was about being an engineer, but people knew I was musical and I could kind of be plugged into, the guy that didn't show up, or can you fix that? They'd have two samples going and they go, it's not right. What's wrong? Well, that's in B flat and that's in E or something. And no one would know things like that, in the world. Yeah, it seems very obvious, but you need somebody around to do that. And after I worked with Prince, I started to work in Europe a lot, like in London, France, Germany, and a little bit in California. I was that guy for a while, which was really fun.
So this was the engineering phase of your
Yeah,
career mainly you're describing.
exactly. And I was always a musician, but I wasn't performing much. I was mostly in the studio, which was really what I wanted to do anyway. I wanted to be part of making records, both on a technical and musical level. So it was great until I met Mr. Bowie around 1996. And
How? How do you meet David Bowie?
another of these total accidents
I'm
where
gonna
you
take notes. Go on. Okay.
um, I had a room. I had a little studio of my own, a lot smaller than this, as part of Philip Glass's studio complex in New York called Looking Glass Studios. A lot of people came through there, including David. And he came through specifically because Philip had done a project with him. He did a Philip version of one of David's albums. So David was curious, and he was always looking for a new place to work, new people, always. I mean, he was just an eternally curious person. Uh, Always talk about the journey and the quest. He was the king of all of that. So I met him there, and I got paired with him because I was more of a rock person as opposed to Philip's engineers, which were more in Philip's world. So it seemed it was a good idea to pair me with him. And I was supposed to work a couple of weeks, and that turned into about 7 years or something.
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah. So you were playing with them. So this was like your
no, well,
musician hat on, or are you engineering and musician?
I was engineering and I was doing drum programming and synthesizer programming. I was a big part of that on that level, a big part of the first album I did with him, which was called Earthling. David and his guitarist, musical director, Reeves Cabrels, they knew I played, so much so that the next album, they called me to not be a programmer or even engineer, but to be a fretless bass player, which I thought was, wow, this is great. For me, I was ready for a change of pace after years of being the programmer, engineer, mixer person. Like, cool, I'd love to do that. So I ended up doing that and playing a little acoustic guitar too. And I ended up mixing and engineering at the same time because I guess I have good value for money. And
Yeah. Wow. One-stop shop.
another part of it is being good value for money, and people like, they get that. There was another sort of these little events that just drop out of the sky. He was going to do a TV show on VH1 called Storytellers. And I knew they would need an extra guitar player, an acoustic guitar player, because a lot of his newer material had an acoustic guitar in it. And I thought, well, I could do one show. That'd be great. And they thought that was a good idea too. It was easy. They knew me. I knew it was not like finding somebody and seeing if they fit in with the, you know, with the vibe and all that. It was like, cool. But then I never left the band. David would be like, oh, now you're that guy, you know. And I became the band leader. So then I became, you know, at that point in my life, I was maybe 36 or 37. I became like a touring musician, which I'd never really done. So that was very exciting to go
Yeah.
into that for a few years.
It got you out of your little studio there, out of your habitat.
Yeah, it did actually. Well, I was still doing this. It was very, you know, it was a very busy time. You know, it was a lot was going on, which was great.
Well, in order to move on to talking about the project we're focused on now, I do just want to hit on some of these other names
Sure.
in your bio that you've worked with. I mean, Quincy Jones, Janet Jackson, Talking Heads, Fleetwood Mac, Lou Reed. I was actually going to put on a Cure shirt today, and then I was like, oh no, I'll go
Ah,
plain. But I wish I wore the Cure shirt. You worked with the Cure. That's so cool. And yeah, just the list goes on. There's a lot of big names here. Color me impressed. Like, I mean, we were just all so thrilled you were giving your attention to this project.
I'm glad that uh, I'm glad that what I was able to contribute helped push it forward, basically, because you know, like you said before, you know, for Josh and Dennis, it was like their baby, you know, and now it's kind of mine too.